Well, so much seems to have happened in between that first T20I, which was only 3 days back, and now what will be the second T20I a day later on Wednesday, the 28th of July. This is ESPN Riggin for Match Day. The toss has already gone down in Colombo, and we're happy that we're having a game after all the uncertainty, after the postponement yesterday when we learned from the Indian camp that Krunal Pandya tested positive and a number of players that were in close contact with him would also be ruled out of the second T20I. It makes for plenty of conversation with Aakash Chopra as well as Muralidaran as Sri Lanka look to stay alive in this three-match T20I series. We're glad we're getting a game, gentlemen. A very good evening to both of you. And Aakash, it's a timely reminder that we should appreciate that we're getting some cricket at all. All these things can happen in these times where not just one but a host of players can be ruled out overnight.
Without doubt, and it's still, says still there is a cloud of uncertainty hovering over our heads. To be very honest, while we are all happy and celebrating that the game is still on, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that there is one guy who's been tested positive. There are 8 close contacts that's been identified. In a dressing room, everybody is a close contact, in my understanding, unless there is something else. And the incubation period of the COVID-19, whatever we've seen so far, it can take a few days. So the guy played on the 25th. There has been like right till the night, and then whoever you've been in touch with, you test positive on the 27th morning. 28th, you're having a game with an entirely new look Indian team, but. I still feel that I'm not 100% sure whether this should be happening, even though we celebrate whenever cricket takes place.
Absolutely, it's a very valid point you make. And Murli, I mean, these are in uncertain times and whatnot, but all the Krunal Pandya played in the game on the 25th. He was part of team huddles and celebrations and on the field. So this distinction of making close contact players out, it's an interesting one. Let me get your thoughts. You're in the thick of things. Should India have a big enough squad to actually replace 7, 8 players in a game? I wonder what they would have done if they didn't have such a big squad.
You think that these days, when you go on a tour, they will go 25, 26 people because
Hmm.
these things can happen. Because when you go to England, in Sri Lanka side took about 27 people. Like that, these days, every time we'll have to have big squad. I think that's why India also got a big squad in here because even though their first team is in England, so they have the strength to back up with so many players. So this unfortunate thing, I don't know how it happened in a bubble. It's in Sri Lanka, especially because the COVID is not that big talk in Sri Lanka because in the country maybe 600 to 700 people might get in a COVID in a day, and to come into in the bubble, it's surprising thing for me. And where it came and everything that they have to find, the official has to find out. And also when it comes to the match, because you have to have the other players, but it's a you test and the expert has to say. You were saying about that this how come they are hugging each other and how come certain players are first contact and other players are not aren't. So that is the I don't know, the expert has to tell that rather than us
Yeah,
discussing
yeah.
about that. We don't know about this.
Absolutely. You know, that I guess there's only so much that we can say about this year, and maybe we'll afford a little bit of benefit of doubt to the organizers. I'm sure there are health professionals involved, and they've taken this call in the interest of the players that it's safe to have a game today. But yeah, it's food for thought. We know who Krunal Pandya was in close contact with in their terms, and those players don't feature today. That includes Prithvi Shaw and Surya Kumar Yadav, who are supposed to be making a trip to the UK very soon. What happens to that, we will know in time to come. And of course, we'll have you covered on ESPN again for the minute we know more from the BCCI or the Indian camp. Also ruled out of this game, naturally, Krunal Pandya himself and Hardik Pandya, as well as Ishan Kishan and Deepak Chahar. So there are going to be a host of changes that India would make. Sri Lanka, however, have won the toss. Dasun Chanaka is going to have a bowl first. And as we look at teams, they'll come up in just a moment for you. There are 4 more debutants. Devdutt Padikkal gets a game. Ruturaj Gaikwad gets a game. Nitish Rana gets a game as well. So we do have debutants galore once more. Akash, names that we've seen and heard in the IPL so much. And here they are now capped for India. Thoughts?
This was likely to happen if India were at full strength today. or yesterday, and had they wrapped the series there and then. We saw the number of changes that happened in the ODI format as well. So hypothetically, all these guys would have played the last T20I in whichever case. It's just that now it's not the last; it's the second, and a must-win game for Sri Lanka. India can afford a loss, maybe. So you've got a few players. Good thing is Devdutt Padikkal now is a seasoned campaigner, so to speak, in the IPL, and Ruturaj Gaikwad, lots of runs. Sanju Samson, Nitish Rana has been around for a while. Batting looks a little thin, but then Dasun Chanaka has done them a favor, winning the toss and bowling first, because with this batting lineup, you won't back yourself to chase even 150.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. Murli, you were making that point before we went live. It looks like India will be short of batters. It looks like they've fielded whichever players were available. But only when you look at that team and you see Bhuvaneshwar Kumar on the left side instead of the right side of your screen, do you realize that this is a batting lineup that's thin? There are five specialist bowlers on the right, plus Bhuvaneshwar Kumar. So that's six specialist bowlers. But that is an interesting call by Dasun Chanaka, deciding to bowl first, looking at that team.
Yeah, definitely, because it's a very thin batting lineup. Because I know, because of the first contact, who are the players are most of them batsmen and all rounders. So India look very thin on their batting, and also as a team, I think this is the best chance to Sri Lanka to capitalize on this. Because if they can't capitalize on this, and it will be a shame on them, because the team that playing, and I can't say it's a C team or D team, or I can't say India is playing the whatever available for them, rather than they are not putting in the squad the best 11 to the squad and try to secure the series. But this is an opportunity, and also, and if they can, Sri Lanka can win, they can boost themselves, like the last one day they won, and they can get some confidence how to win matches. So that's something I can say. But still, batting second, I would have thought, because it was heavy rain in Sri Lanka, even in the round about 5 o'clock, 5:30 was raining hard. So when you rain, that was the reason also the that's why Dasun Chanaka would have thought that weather will play a game, and they can have advantage on that also, and advantage on lack of Indians players. So I think it's a right decision, winning the toss
Okay.
and electing.
All right, fair enough. Let's talk about some of those changes that India have made. Akash, lots of openers in that team. Now, you played in a T20 side where perhaps the opening spot wasn't available to someone who likes to open. Are we looking at Padikkal and Dhawan up top? Ruturaj Gaikwad would make a strong case to open. I know we know Samson likes to open. Nitish Rana opens for KKR too. But thoughts on who comes out, and what an opportunity this is for someone like Padikkal to make some kind of impression. You never know with a left-hand opening bat if the selectors are tempted at all.
See, if you were to, the only thing that prevents Devdutt Padikkal from opening, let me put it this way, is that he's a left-hander, and there is another left-hander. So two left-handers, will always be a temptation. Let's get left hand, right hand together. Let's get Ruturaj, because he's been opening for the Chennai Super Kings. But when you look at who's a more natural opener, Ruturaj is not, and Devdutt Padikkal is. So if you go by that logic, then you should have the two left-handers opening. We've seen Lanka and Hayden opening, so and two right-handers open all the time. But when you've got a right-hander in the mix, and you want to just distribute that, or rather just have that kind of balance, maybe Ruturaj. But I'd still go with Padikkal and Shikhar Dhawan to open. Ruturaj at 3, Sanju at 4, Nitish Rana perhaps once again at 5, and see how it goes from there. A bit more responsibility if there is something in the surface, then give yourself a bit more time. And you're right. See, all these opportunities, India cap is difficult to come by. Perhaps not so much in these days, but this is what you always like. You grow up dreaming that one day I get the India cap. Devdutt Padikkal, Ruturaj Gaikwad, they are now just living that dream.
All right. Now I'm going to come back to that Indian team, but then let's just confirm the Sri Lanka changes very quickly and get a comment from Murli on the same. There are a couple of changes there. Ramesh Mendes gets a T20I debut, so he features in this game, and Sadira Samaravikrama also plays. So Charita Salanka and Ashin Bandara are both out. Let's get Murli's thoughts on those changes. Ramesh Mendes comes in, so there's an extra specialist off spin option if India do come out with two left hand opening batsmen. Murli, thoughts on those two changes?
So I would say even Sri Lankan team, because Asalanka has got injured, I think. That's why he's not playing. Sadira Samaravika was an impressive player. He played before and he lost his place, and they are giving him a chance again. And Ramesh Mendis is an all-rounder, all-spinner plus. So, but if you take even the Sri Lankan team, I think batting also, that also thing, because they are going on with a lot of all rounders. If you can put it again, I can explain to you by the names,
Yes, please.
because in the screen the names. Can you put the screen,
Yeah, yeah, right
please?
away. We'll just get the team back for you. And
So
of
if you
course,
say
like you
the
said, yes,
specialist
Murli.
batsmen days are four batsmen, like Avishka Fernando, Minu Banaka, Samara Vikram, and Dhananjay will be the batsmen. Others three people, or Vanindu Asalanga, to all rounders. So like they bowlers plus who can bat. So mostly they also gone with a little bit of not specialist batsmen, at least in a T20 game, at least 5 to 6, at least 5 people has to be specialist batsmen, and then you
Hmm.
can go with 2 or 3 all-rounders and the bowlers. That will be
Yeah,
ideal team, but they are trying their thing also, combination how to win a match. So we can't say anything bad about that. But
hmm.
I feel they also need a one more specialist batsman rather than too many all-rounders, because if you see in this batting lineup, four all-rounders are there, four batters are there.
Yeah,
So I need, if you can have five batters and three all rounders and three specialist bowlers, I would say that will be ideal combination to my mind. But still, they can win this match because India looks very thin.
yeah, it's a fair point. And Charita Asalanka was the standout batter in the last game. So they're without the one batter that looked good in the first T20I, Sri Lanka. But he is out due to injury. But that's the team they've gone with. If we just put up that Indian team again, though, Akash, another change that we didn't quite foresee was Yuzvendra Chahal out. Now, I don't know if he's ruled out as a result of the close association with Krunal Pandya. But Kuldeep Yadav, who we didn't think would get a game, gets a game. And we'll also make a mention of Chetan Sakaria now, who also makes an appearance in the T20I series, having been capped in the ODI series. Just thoughts on those two changes?
Yeah, interesting. Because see, there is no other reason why UZ Chahal would have been left out, because everybody who's available is on the park, unless of course he's picked up an injury, which we are not privy to. So when you look at this bowling unit, Kuldeep, we didn't think that he'll get a game. Now he gets a game in extraordinary circumstances. It might just change everything for him. Comes out, takes a 3 wicket haul or four for. This is how life actually just presents opportunities to you. So I think he'd be looking at it from that vantage point. Navdeep Saini gets a game, which I didn't think was possible with the kind of fast bowlers were there in the team. Chetan Sakaria, I think he'll be fine because he was very impressive in the one ODI that he played. I found it slightly like not unfair but unfortunate that you can't continue with the same players because you had already made so many changes, and that's why he didn't play the first T20I. He was picked for the shortest format. Varun Chakravarti is there, so he gets another game. Rahul Chahar is there, and we know that he's more than a handful. So the Indian bowling attack, even with a lot of players missing, the fact is still looks very good. Kuldeep Yadav, Chetan Sakaria, Chakravarti, Rahul Chahar. You've got plenty of bowling options, and not to forget Bhuvneshwar Kumar, who picked up a 4 for in the last game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can only assume that Yuzvendra Chahal is also part of the close contact group. Otherwise, that team doesn't quite make sense. It only makes sense if you consider everyone who had to be ruled out is not available, and therefore the balanced players make this team. Now, in the last game, they started well. Sri Lanka with the ball. Murli Dushmanta Chamira had a pretty big impact with the new ball. Are we expecting something similar in the second T20I from a conditions front? Will it still be helpful to the seamers starting off?
Yeah, this because of the weather, and because it's raining, and there will be a little bit of moisture in the wicket, because surrounding will be rained up affected and moisture will come through. So there will be some assistance for the whole. I'm not saying only for the first 20. It will be there for all 40 overs. Definitely, this wicket will spin. The spinners will come into play very much in this T20 competition, and I think the fast bowlers will also enjoy, because this R. Premadasa Stadium is not as the whole R. Premadasa flat wickets, because this gives a 50-50 chance to batters and bowlers as well, even the fast bowlers and the seamers as well. So they have changed the soil about 5 6 years ago, and it changed a lot. So I think fast bowlers with the new ball, definitely for 6 overs they will bounce and swing a little bit, and then after that spinners will come to play. But see, that's why I said always this ground has been a 160 165. It's a very hard batting side has to really play well to chase this.
Yeah, we saw that in the first T20. Akash Surya Kumar Yadav was head and shoulders above the rest. He's out now. Just two batters that played in that first game are in this one, Shikhar and Sanju Samson. Does the batting plan change a little bit? Does it go to Shikhar Dhawan playing the Dhawan of a few years back, just anchoring, staying around at 110, 120 maybe, and try and anchor this innings with so many new players? Would you bat differently in the second T20I from what you've seen in the first?
Shikhar's strike rate in the first T20I also was 127. It
Yes.
wasn't 147. So 127 is just about par for the course. That's the kind of batting strike rate that we have seen from Shikhar Dhawan of old, the one that you just mentioned. And last 18 months, we saw slightly different Shikhar Dhawan, who was going at the rate of knots, whether it was the IPL or the international T20Is. So going back to the old formula is not difficult for someone who's as experienced as Shikhar. And that might just be the plan of action for today, because there aren't too many players around you. So you start perhaps slowly, and then you assess the situation conditions, and then you start planning the further course of action, because you can't walk into a game thinking this is how I'm going to play for the 20 overs, because the game will always follow, or just will produce a narrative that you must follow and not the other way around. So Shikhar is wise enough, experienced enough to just do the needful, perhaps start a little slowly, respect the conditions, and also be mindful of the fact that his batting lineup is really thin.
Okay, might I just for a moment step away from the game and the series itself? And we always have the IPL at the back of our mind, and of course, both Akash Chopra and Muralidaran are associated with it, follow it closely. We now have a case, Akash. Who knows if players like Padikkal, Ruturaj Gaikwad, Nitish Rana would have all been capped had the full squad been available? Maybe they would have got a game in the third, maybe they wouldn't have. Now they're all going to get capped, and suddenly the dynamic to next year's auction is also affected. We don't know what the rule would be on capped players and not, but there would be a few IPL captains thinking, damn, I'd love to keep Padikkal or Ruturaj Gaikwad if the rules allow me to. These sort of mess up franchise plans, or no?
Not so much. Not so much. Honestly, with the kind of monies that franchises are willing to put out, and I'm pretty sure Murli will just validate what I'm trying to just emphasize here. You've got Devdutt Patikal, who's one of the three guys or four guys they may want to actually retain. You're looking at Ruturaj Gaikwad, then Chennai Super Kings will look very closely at him to just acquiring him back. May not retain him, but maybe right to match card if that's available. So when you're looking at those kind of players, people who are actually on the verge of playing for India, you'd rather have him as India players, because it still carries a lot of like pride for a player, and suddenly now you feel I'm an India player, you see, so now I need to make my worth known to everyone in a slightly different fashion. That's just from player point of view. The moment you get that India cap, name for the country, it gives you a lot of confidence, responsibility, and therefore your behavior sometimes changes. So I'd say no, franchise won't be bothered at all.
Or would it be the case, Murli, that some franchises stand to gain, some stand to lose? None of these players are Sunrisers players. So, if anything, it opens up their availability in the auction if they get capped. But are franchises already thinking of that big auction next year? I'm sure that's at the back of their mind somewhere.
Yeah, definitely, because all the franchise will be looking at the players who are playing for India, because they are the pick of the auction, because not the overseas players. So the
Hmm.
Indian players will be the most important players for every team, because to balance the side. Because the reason is you can play seven overseas and four overseas and seven Indian players. So the balance is made by the Indian players. So the Indian players' value is more than the overseas players. So that's what happened in an auction. So when it comes to getting a cap is important for that player, because of Indian cap. There are certain rules in IPL when it comes to cap, like when you come into how quickly your auction list
Hmm.
will come first. So then they will get the opportunity, because Indian player will come in the first few lists. So then
Yes.
so I'm just revealing some secrets for you. So the first they all the players whatever coming in, the money will spend on those players. So
Hmm.
then when they come last, the money is not there, then they give lesser. So these opportunities players will have because of the cap, they will come in the list front, so much as possible. So they won't be in the uncapped players. So uncapped players comes in the end. So that is one advantage the players get. And then other thing is, if you are played for India, see the rules and regulations. Most of the franchises give single rooms. Sometimes the uncapped players get share. So if you played for India, you have to give a single room. So those are the advantages these guys can get as a taking the. This is the IPL rules and regulations in
Absolutely,
that pyramid. So
absolutely.
these are the advantages they have. Other than nothing.
And we're with you. We're with you. It's an open secret in some ways, right? You know that you're going to splurge money on the guys that come first. So in anything, this would be the last series you think where all these, you'd say, reserve players or players on in the second tier would get an opportunity, Akash. So now that they're capped, in some ways, this does open up that auction for next year, doesn't it?
Oh, well, it does. See, it always will. I'm happy for the players, to be honest, because they'll walk away with a bit more money, and that's in the end a cricketer in me would always want that the current playing cricketers should actually make a lot of money, and these are young players, so they'll get their value, or rather they'll be valued what they're worth, which is always a nice thing. And if they get a single room, even better, because we are living in times where we are used to isolation, we are used to quarantines, we are not used to actually sharing space with people. So it's not that bad a problem, or that big a problem if you are not sharing a room with someone. It's actually a blessing.
I like that you're saying that because I know our viewers, some of you may know, some may not know. Murli can confirm this, that I know that the international players all get their own room in the IPL, and the Indian capped players also, the seniors get it. But some of
Mhm.
the uncapped players tend to have to bunk together like the olden days. Is that true even today, Murli? Are the hotel rooms
No,
decided on the
no, but
basis?
it's after COVID, they mostly
Yeah,
get now they get single rooms because of you have COVID and one person
yeah,
get, the other person also gets that. So, but if the COVID is not there, they have to share. That is the
yeah.
rule of IPL. Some franchise, because richer franchises, sometimes they give that privacy for the players. Some, according to the laws and rules of they do, because of sometimes some franchise are not rich and by their business, or sometimes they lose money, so they have to protect their franchise, so they use these rules and regulation according to the IPL laws.
Yeah, I love it. And Murli just calls it so straight, isn't he? Now, I mean, it's just brilliant. Are there richer franchises than the other? Anyway, good on Muralidaran and Aakash Chopra.
You know better than that. There are richer
Yeah,
franchises.
absolutely.
They can have even five franchises on their own, so that kind of money they have.
You gotta love it. The legend, the man, the legend, Muthan Muralidharan, calling it as it is, and absolutely right. We are hoping that we will see IPLs without the COVID situation, in which case, being a cap player entitles you to a few more privileges than if you were still a domestic player, an uncapped player. Keep in mind also that now you have experienced Indian players you think who are capped, the likes of a Manish Pandey, Shreyas Iyer, and they'll pretty much be in the same set of pools as batters go with the likes of Devdutt Padikkal or Ruturaj Gaikwad. So it just opens up the dynamic of the big auction for next year's IPL completely. Anyway, let's get back. Let's behave ourselves. There's an international match going on here, and there's an international series up for grabs. This is Sri Lanka's best opportunity. You think, Murli? They're still alive in this series, and India is significantly depleted. They couldn't chase, what was it, 164 in the last game. What would Sri Lanka like to keep India to? Looking at the batting lineup as well, would 140, 150 be where Dasun Chanaka is thinking?
No, but if I'm playing in this side and if I'm in the moment, I will be thrilled and I will be jumping for the kill, because I know they don't have a big batting lineup. Somebody has to anchor it. They can't come and hard
Hmm.
at you. If they go too hard, they might lose wicket and they might end up within less than 120, 130 runs. So they have to be very, very carefully play and see the situation, and then they won't able to make a huge score unless someone like Shekhar Dhawan or Sanju Samson capable of one hand lead. So especially Sanju Samson can be very, very devastating if he goes hard. and he can get 100 runs and put the tables in. He has done in IPL, so
Yeah.
that can happen because whether he has that confidence because he's playing only one match you have played as a cap, and whether he will do that or we don't know. So as a Sri Lankan cricket team, I think they have to get the advantage. They got advantage, and
Hmm.
they know they have to go for the kill straight away, go for wickets, try to attack them for 6 overs, put them under pressure, and show them where they are. We are going to crush you. That's the way they have to go. And
Yeah.
attitude will make them a little bit put backwards Indian team because they are depleted by not many people are there in the park, the senior players and experienced players. So they will take it cautiously.
Yeah, absolutely. Fair point from Murli. Before the game's already underway. Before that, Ruturaj Gaikwad has opened Akash. So I guess that makes sense, the point you were making.
Left hand right hand combination, and India got a couple, I think, even before the ball is bowled. So
Hmm.
first ball without being bowled, India has got two on the board. So all these runs are going to matter with the kind of the lack of batting depth that this Indian team has due to extraordinary circumstances. So let's hope whoever has got an opportunity, Ruturaj opens, may get some runs, and Devdutt Padikkal as well, and then Sanju Samson, like Murli said, there's some class there. Whenever he's out there, batting looks ever so easy. So why not just make it really big when it really counts?
All right. Now, I just leave you with one thought. If when that's for in when India come into the field, if there is an injury, who comes on to perhaps replace a fielder as a substitute? There's already a bit of Twitter talk on Rahul Dravid making an appearance, playing his second T20I. But we'll come to that at the halftime break with Akash Chopra and Mutaya Muralidharan. Gentlemen, thank you so much. This has been fun. We'll be back with Akash and Murli at the end of the India innings. So do join us then on ESPN Cricket for Match.